Hello students, today we are going to start new chapter 3. The name of the chapter, as you can see, is force and pressure. We have learnt in lower classes what is force. We know that whenever we want to push or pull any object, whenever we are kicking a ball, whenever we are trying to stop a ball, then we are applying force. Force is applied to do work. If we apply force on a body and the body moves, then we say that work is done. But when you are pushing a body, when a force is applied on a body, and if the direction of the force is along the center of mass, then there will be a translatory motion. Okay, there will be a translatory motion. For example, the body, if you apply force from this direction along the center of mass, which is somewhere here, then the body will move this way. Okay, but suppose if I apply force in the direction which is not along the center of mass, suppose, as you can see in this picture, the center of mass will be here in the middle and force is applied in this direction, then in that case there will be not a translatory motion. The body will as a whole will not move, but it may so happen that the body will rotate. So whenever we find such body, whether suppose you are pushing a table from one corner, suppose there is a table and you are pushing it from one corner, then you may observe that the table is rotating. There will be not a bodily movement of the table. One point will be fixed, one leg will be at its own position, and the table rotates. Similar case happens when we pull or open a door or close a door. Then there is also a rotation along the hinge, and which is called the axis of rotation. So when we apply force on a pivoted body, then we don't see translatory motion, and in that case the body moves or turns rather about any axis. This is called turning effect of force. Force can make objects turn. Okay, now what the force can do? Force can make the object turn. If there is a hinge, you must have noticed, then when you open or close the door, actually there is a turning effect of the door. This we know. Now, this turning effect of force is called moment of force or torque. This turning effect of force is called moment of force or torque. Now, what is torque? We all know that force applied on a body produces translatory motion. But torque is the tendency of the force to produce rotational motion. It is the tendency of the force to produce the rotational motion. It is equivalent to force in translatory motion. What force does in translatory motion, the same thing torque does in rotatory motion. The moment of force or torque can be calculated. Now this moment of force or torque depends upon two factors. Now what are the two factors? The two factors are the force and the distance from the pivot. The two factors are the force and the distance from the pivot. The moment of force or torque depends upon these two factors. Okay, now, and so we are obtaining the formula of torque. Torque is equal to F into D, means torque is equal to force into distance. Okay, for example, let us see, suppose you, with the help of spanner, you want to open the nut. So how much you are applying force at this end? It is obvious that if you apply the force in the middle, then you will have to apply more force. Ever you try to open or close the door by pulling it from the middle, you will see that you have to apply more force. That is why we always apply forces at the corner, at the end, so that, because torque is what? Force into distance. If distance is increased, if distance is large, then we have to apply less force. So that is the reason if we want to open a big nut, then we take the big spanner. Why? That big spanner will provide large distance, which will produce the same torque by applying less force. Okay? So this distance is called d, and the force you are applying here is the F, and the total rotation effect is called F into d. Now, factors affecting the moment of force. Now, what are the factors that on which moment of force depend? So there are two factors, as we have already discussed. First is the strength, how much force you are applying, and second is the perpendicular distance of the axis of rotation from the pivot. So there are two factors of the torque, and the product of these two factors gives us the mathematically the moment of force. See, as I told you, it is easier to open a door by pushing it from the maximum point, from the edges of maximum far away from the hinge, and that is why all the handles and all these are placed at the end. If we want to open or close the door by applying force in the middle, then you may experience it that you have to apply more force. Why? Because when the distance decreases, then what happens? When the distance decreases, the force increases. Similarly, as we have seen here, if I have a spanner and if I want to apply force here, then I have to apply less force. But suppose for any reason I want to give the force in the middle, I want to hold it in the middle and open the nut, then I have to apply more force. Okay? So these are the common examples of this. Now there are some other also common example. Okay? You can do one thing. If you have a new pencil and you want to sharpen it, if you try to hold the pencil near the sharpener, you will see you have to apply more force to rotate it, rather than if you hold the sharpener pencil at the end, then you have to apply less force. Okay. So while driving a car, same thing happens here also. Now let's come to the next topic, pressure. What is pressure? Pressure is actually defined as the force acting normally on a surface per unit area. Pressure is defined as the force acting normally or perpendicularly on a surface per unit area. The force per acting on the surface normally is called thrust. So we can also say, in short, that pressure is thrust per unit area, and that is why the formula pressure is P equal to F by A. Okay? The unit of pressure is Newton per meter square, or we call it in short Pascal. So now this pressure depends upon two factors. First is the force and second is the area. So pressure is directly proportional to force. If force is more, pressure will be more. And pressure is inversely proportional to area. Okay? If area is small, then pressure will be large. And this is the reason why where we want to increase the pressure, suppose the tip of a nail or paper pin is pointed. Why? So that it increases the pressure and penetrates inside the paper easily. So there are many examples of drawing pin, needle who have a pointed end, so that it increases the pressure. On the other hand, the other end has less pressure. Okay, till here up today. and in the next class we will go ahead.